What's up fam, I'm BrandonRico and this is my channel where I talk about music production, mobile music production, and some of the tech to help you get it done. So if you're following me on social media, you might have seen me post this image. And this has sparked a lot of different questions, so let me start off by saying this. I do not work for Intua. I have no information or any updates or any news or anything like that. They've never sponsored a video or never paid me to talk about any of the videos that I have done before in the past. So every time that I've ever talked about Beatmaker 3 is literally because I've used it all the time. I actually make my living off of some of the tools available in Beatmaker 3, and I just really care about the platform overall. I think it's a really dope tool to have, and it's a really great piece of workflow that any producer will be lucky to have in their arsenal. So let's talk about this image. So after posting this image, I have sparked a great deal of conversation amongst my peers, amongst my community, amongst my followers, from DMs to direct text messages to phone calls. I've gotten a lot of questions as to what it means. A couple of weeks ago, I recently broke my iPad Pro, and this was the older iPad Pro that I actually started the channel with. It had quite a few documents that I considered to be important to me. It had older apps that were downloaded and older workflows that you just can't get anymore anywhere. You can't even download this stuff anymore. And honestly, I'm just not in a rush to get it repaired. I mean, look at this. It's just, this is done. This is finished. So yeah, I'm just not in a rush to get it repaired. Now again, granted, this is the older 2017 iPad Pro. This one still had the home button and everything. And like I said, this is the iPad that I use to help grow this channel and deliver a lot of the content that you guys have seen over the past couple years. And I just started to think like, man, like what if this had happened to any of my more current iPads? Would I be in a rush to get those repaired? And coming up with an answer for myself, man, the answer actually shocked me. Because the answer was actually no. I wouldn't be in a rush. Now, don't get me wrong. I still use iPad every day to make music. This is literally what I do full time. I'm creating music, I'm creating content, I'm editing on all of these devices. And I have been using the iPad less and less outside of the iPad mini. I've been using it less and less to do certain tasks, especially for music production. And the thought of that really shook me, because I don't know if it's because I recently picked up the brand new MacBook Air M2, or if it's just the fact that convenience and portability just wasn't enough to keep me inspired or get me excited enough to make music on the go with that type of device anymore. Especially for a very long time, a couple of years actually, I considered the iPad Pro one of my go-to devices for making music anywhere. And don't get me wrong, I still do, but there have been quite a few things that I'm still frustrated with, and then things that I still hope and wish for from iOS music production. And depending on when you're watching this, the September event for Apple in 2022 is right around the corner. Actually, probably about a week away. There will be new updates and there will be new products announced, new design factors and new forms and everything. And I'm just really worried about the older apps that may get shaven off. Just like every year or every update, there's a new list of apps of incompatibility with the new iOS updates. Which brings me to Beatmaker 3. And I'm not just picking on Beatmaker 3. There have been quite a few apps and developments that really gave me a little bit of a scare when it comes to updates, because they're just not getting them. Beatmaker 3 is about 4 years old now, or maybe a little over, I don't remember, but since the launch it has very little to no frequent updates. And as of right now, I can confirm that there is no current beta being tested for Beatmaker 3 updates. Now this is quite alarming, because we know that with the new iOS updates that are on the way, we're not 100% sure that Beatmaker 3 or any of the other older apps that are not getting updated will continue to work. It will be rendered obsolete over time. We know that it's gonna happen one of these days. And I know a lot of you have invested quite a bit of time, documentation, and workflow and learning curve inside of Beatmaker 3, which is great. This is awesome, but it's time for an update. Hopefully Intu is watching this, and I'm hoping that I can inspire some type of I don't know, push to get things rolling, because in the past I've done some Beatmaker 3 tutorials, and I've actually been accused of being a little bit elementary with those tutorials, which is actually on purpose, but we'll get to that in a second. Again, not just picking on Beatmaker 3, but a lot of these apps need updates. Otherwise, you're gonna start seeing users just drop off and pick up other stuff, because it gets to a point where the workflow is not as inspiring, or it's just not adapting with the time. I don't know if we need a facelift with a brand new updated user interface, or brand new MIDI features. There's a lot of different things that I would love to see in a Beatmaker 3 update, or a Beatmaker 4 or Beatmaker Pro update, especially when it comes to bug fixes or just native control. There are very simple things that just don't work inside of the current version of Beatmaker 3. Like the play, pause, and stop function doesn't even work with the native Apple Magic keyboard like it does in other DAWs. When you press the space bar, it doesn't do that. And that's just one of the simpler things that I can think of off the top of my head. Again, don't get me wrong, Beatmaker 3 is one of the most best samplers and sequencers, period, on iOS and on desktop. But is that enough now? There's even been a significant drop off in tech when it comes to MIDI controllers, or even overall hardware that is targeted towards iOS music production. There have been MIDI controllers that have been discontinued or just downright canceled production on a lot of this stuff. And yeah, some of it has to do with the pandemic and product chip shortages on a lot of this stuff. But I kind of feel like the tech space is losing a lot of momentum, and I don't want iOS music production to suffer because of it. Depending on what Apple will announce this year for their new event in September, I'm not even sure that I'll be upgrading to a new iPad if they announce one. I mean, it really depends. It really has to bring something new to the table for me to be genuinely interested in upgrading my iPad workflow. Right now, I still have the 2018 iPad Pro. It's still alive and well and still works well with Beatmaker 3 and everything. However, trying to future-proof your workflow really depends on the software that is compatible with your current devices. And with no sign of life in development with a lot of these iOS apps, I'm really worried that the workflows that I've created will one day wither away. And this is just all my opinion. These are just my thoughts about how everything is moving forward. And with that momentum that we built and the workflows that we've built, especially with iOS now starting to get some mainstream recognition, there's going to be a whole new wave of users looking for professional tools on the iPad. And I think it's safe to say that Beatmaker 3 is actually a flagship app when it comes to beat making on the iPad. At least top 5. So I want to be able to talk to those users who are just coming over to Beatmaker 3 or coming over to iPad music production and offer things like Beatmaker 3 as a solution to be able to use this in professional work environments the same way that I have, to be able to make money, to be able to create big, large projects, and overall just having fun again making music, especially on the go with the portability factor and all. Like I said, I've been very elementary in the way that I've talked about Beatmaker 3 before, but now I want to talk to a different type of user. And for those who are interested in learning Beatmaker 3 or any other iOS music production workflow on a more serious professional level, I am going to be offering private lessons and private classes that I will be announcing within the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks. And of course, I still will be talking about Beatmaker 3 and a lot of the iOS music production here on the channel. It's just now I'm geared more towards the user who wants to take it a little bit more further. So if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, if that sounds like something that intrigues you, most definitely consider subscribing to the channel. And if you want to support me, I will put a Patreon link in the description. You can support me on Patreon, and then I'll have different tier levels on how I will be approaching my behind the scenes or exclusive content when it comes to music production and mobile music production. So yeah, I'll have that linked in the description below. I'm talking private lessons and conversations, one-on-ones, virtual meetups, live streams and live events, beat critiques and all, just like the good old days, but just on a bigger, grander level. I want to be able to bring in resources and bring in app developers for those conversations as well. I also have special topics and special guests planned to show up in these events. And this is all going to go down in the Patreon group. So if you're interested, link is in the description. So with all that being said, I'm just hoping and waiting to see next week what is being announced, and hoping that everything is still intact, and then hoping that I can continue to use what I love and use what has made me success in my music career. The software, the hardware, the tools that I use to make actual money and do this full time. I'm just hoping that some of the developers see this and are able to start conversations even with you down here in the comments. I mean, let me ask you a question. What would it take? What would it take for you to be inspired again, or would you be willing to pay a little bit more money for these apps to get updated? I don't know. Let's have that conversation in the comments below, and then we'll see what happens. I'm BrandonRico. Thanks for rocking with me. Thanks for rocking with the channel, you guys. Again, I appreciate all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.